Hello, this is Jehu Hand. I'm running for U.S. Senate to represent the state of California. This is my podcast for October 3rd. Today I'm going to tell you things about the abortion issue, which I don't think you're going to hear anywhere else. This might be a long podcast, video. I may be a little disorganized because there's so much to talk about, but here goes. Everything started with the Supreme Court case Roe v. Wade in 1974. And it was thought that that case would resolve issues regarding this with the American people, but instead it caused more controversy. It was supposed to, as Bill Clinton said, make abortion rare, safe, and legal. Well, you know how that turned out. About 64 million abortions have been performed since then, and about 1 million a year right now. So let's go over, first of all, what did Roe versus Wade decide? Well, Justice Blackmun issued an opinion. In Roe versus Wade, basically divided up the issue into trimesters. In the first trimester, the state had nothing to do really, as long as it's, except for safeguarding the safety, the medical procedure of abortion. Third trimester, the state had compelling interest in protecting what the court called potential life, and in, generally having a growth in population. In the middle, the court said that a state could make some restrictions as far as they could educating, giving information to mothers who are contemplating abortion, but that was about it. And they kind of focused on viability, which at the time was about 28 weeks. Now since then, medical science pushed that back to probably 23 or 24 weeks. Looking at my notes here. But Blackmun said, quote, "The woman's right is absolute." He disavowed the argument, quote, that the woman's right is absolute and that she's entitled to terminate her pregnancy at whatever time, in whatever way, and for whatever reason she alone chooses. With this, we do not agree. Period. Okay, so I remember sitting in my law school constitutional law class with Professor David Richards, who I think he presented a very fair view of the topic, and he's about as left as you can come. And he said Roe v. Wade is a bad case. It's weak. And he didn't. I had the idea he didn't think it was going to be sustained in the end. It wasn't going to last. One of the foundations of Roe versus Wade, which is critical, is what they call substantive due process. Now, when we think of due process in law, that usually means that all the procedures are followed, right? You get to have a lawyer, you have a trial by your peers, etc. What substantive due process is, the idea is that we have some additional rights inherent in us that aren't listed in the Bill of Rights. And in Roe, they relied on like a right of privacy, for example, and said the decisions about whether to use contraception, like in the Griswold case, or what goes on in your own bedroom, that's a privacy issue. So every American, everyone who's in the United States, has that right. Okay. The case following Roe, called Planned Parenthood v. Casey, basically, I guess you could say, it muddied up everything. It talked about undue burdens on the mother. It kind of rejected the idea of viability, but basically, it was a big mess. Here I want to interject here. I remember I believe it was during my second year when in constitutional law class, we had an organization on campus called Law Women. And Law Women was open to any law student who was a woman. And back in those days, people knew what that was. Well, it was announced one day, Law Women had a vote. And they said, number one, a woman has the right to an abortion anytime. Number two, a woman has a 30-day period after birth where if she chooses, she can kill the baby. Now, this may sound incredible, but that's really what they decided. And this caused a little bit of a stir because Ed Koch, I'm sorry, I never always forget how to pronounce his name, who is the mayor of New York at the time, was a graduate of NYU Law School. And he was shocked and dismayed by this. Now, in the intervening years, 40 or so since then, I haven't heard of any of my fellow students murdering their babies. But this is something you have to have in mind. This is something that was the mentality in elite law schools. And this is the mentality, to some degree, greater or lesser, of a very large segment of the legal community in the left. So to them, it's almost like a religious idea, a religious belief. When you, for example, in recent weeks we've had people talk to Democrats, well, would you support a ban on abortions in the last week or last month? And they dodge the issue. They go on and talk about something else. And why do they do that? Why would they have an objection to that? Well, there's a reason, and the reason is that, a big reason for that, is that there is a very, very dedicated lobby of women who, it's like a religion to them. They want women to be able to have an abortion anytime, any place, anywhere. And Emily's List, which is an organization of women who bear that view, headed by a lady called LaFonza Butler, raises money like you can't believe. So no Democrat wants to run counter to Emily's List. They don't want to say anything that would imply there's any limits at all on abortion. It's interesting when you hear the Democrats say they want to codify Roe. Well, that's not what they mean. Because if you codified Roe, that would mean that you would prohibit, the states could prohibit abortions at 13 weeks and for sure at 23 weeks. And that's not what they mean. They want to take it even further. They want to push it all the way. And they do this thing which Dan Bongino calls, we're not doing it, it's not happening, and we're glad it's happening. When the voters went to the polls in California to vote for Proposition 1, that is that the right of on a woman to have an abortion is guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution, they were saying, and they keep saying, no, this doesn't restrict the state's ability to regulate abortion, at any time, like in the last trimester. That's what they say, but in reality, there are no limits. In the Atlantic, was an interview recently of an abortion doctor. I think his name was Kern or Hearn. might have it on here. Anyway, basically, he said, look, all this stuff about women getting third trimester abortions because there's a fetal defect or because of some health problem, he said that's pretty much nonsense. Almost everybody that comes to me for third trimester abortions, they just put it off, or they just change their mind. So I think that's really, really telling. Okay, so what was the Dobbs decision? Okay, the Dobbs decision, now depending on your point of view, I happen to think it was very well written. One of the things that the court said was, any of these rights that are inferred under the substantive due process theme, those are only valid if it's a right that's been historically recognized throughout American history. And they said In Roe, they really got the history wrong. They did not fully disclose all the laws against abortion that had been since the beginning of the Republic. Therefore, the right to an abortion is not one of those rights which is guaranteed by substantive due process. Okay, well, I'd like you to listen now on the topic of the theme to this audio clip of a delegate to the Virginia delegation or assembly, whatever it is, and you'll see what these abortion laws they're trying to push really say.
Where it's obvious that a woman is about to give birth. She has physical signs that she is about to give birth. Would that still be a point at which she could request an abortion if she was so certified? She's dilating.
Mr. Chairman, that would be a decision that the doctor, the physician, and the woman would make.
I understand
at
that. I'm asking
point.
if your bill allows that.
My bill would allow that, yes.
Now, in all fairness to Delegate Tran, after this came out, she said, "Oh no, I wasn't talking about abortion when the baby's being born, because that would be infanticide." She said, "What? But okay." But she didn't deny, as stated in the conversation she was having, this questioning she was having before the Virginia Assembly, that a week before that would be okay, just not when the baby's actually being born. Recently there were bills introduced in the Senate on the topic of abortion. One by Ben Sasse wanted to mandate that if there was a failed abortion and the baby was born alive, that the medical professionals had a duty to preserve that life. It was voted down by the Democrats. Lindsey Graham put forth a bill that would make abortion illegal after 20 weeks. That was also down by the Democrats. The Rasmussen poll, and they've had a number of them, basically indicate that 2/3 of Americans oppose abortions after 13 weeks. Only 13% of Americans say that abortion should be legal anytime. So the position that I'm advocating here is supported by the vast majority of Americans. Even in California, 72% oppose third trimester abortions. I am a human being. I do not like it when other human beings die, especially when they're innocents. I have 9 children. The youngest is 1.5 years old. I know what a baby's like at 1 or 2 months. There's really no difference as far as mental capacity and ability to feel and think between a month-old baby and one that's 8 months in the womb. That's a tragedy. And we have to do all we can to safeguard human life, because if we don't, are we really humans? So, I myself, I don't believe that we can regulate abortion on the federal level except to a very limited degree, because the federal government has limited powers. We have a limited government. This is a state issue. There's something called the Commerce Clause that enables the Congress to make laws regarding commerce. But commerce has to do with economics, and there's no economics in the abortion issue. I think we have to work in our states to limit late-term abortions. I think we have to work on the hearts and minds of people. I think we have to change our marketing, so to speak, so that people aren't confused by this disinformation that's put out by the pro-abortion lobby. There's a lot of money being made in abortion, that's for sure. This is a very personal issue to me, but I think it's not just a moral issue, it's a human issue, and it's something we Americans should be concerned about. And if we have a discussion about this, we can get it resolved where the fringes, yes, they're always going to have a problem, but the great body of Americans, we can come together on this and solve it. Thank you, and hope to see you tomorrow. Thank you.